What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Travel Adventures with Eric B. I'm Eric B, and today I'm in the United States, specifically Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I'm going to talk about 12 culture shocks that foreigners experience when they visit the United States of America. Follow along and let's get this adventure started. Welcome to Travel Adventures with Eric B. I'm Eric B. If you're new here, I offer travel advice. I am a solo traveler and I do vlogs to help you travel better and more efficiently. One major culture shock is the size of the U.S. Like, people don't understand, like, the distances are crazy. You're not going to take road trips over the whole country like you would in Germany or the UK or somewhere like that. You got to break the road trips down into regions. The driving distance within the cities in the U.S. is really insane. So unless you're going to just break it down into regions, which I recommend, pick a certain region, it's crazy. Even within the state of Texas, from end to end is over 12 hours long. Another culture shock that also goes along with the size, and this may not be a thing for everyone across the world, but if you're coming from Asia or you're coming from Europe, you may be used to small hotel rooms, small houses, small stays and everything. The rooms in the U.S. and the beds in the U.S. are huge in comparison to those places. And sometimes in the U.S. you really get rooms that are massive, like this Hampton Inn that I got in Gretna, Louisiana, which was upstairs and downstairs. Usually not quite that big, but I've gotten many large hotel rooms that were just single rooms. They weren't suites or anything. You're probably not going to find that abroad anywhere. Another cultural surprise you may experience when you come to the U.S. for the first time is the portions of the food. I mean, all over the world, they don't get 44-ounce drinks. They definitely don't get free refills like they do here in the U.S. And the food portions here are huge. A lot of people in other countries think it's wasteful, the portion size that we have here. But we're so used to the portion size that when we go to other countries, we look at their portion size like, this ain't enough. Another culture shock when you visit the U.S. is the tipping culture. Most countries, you're looking at either no tip or 5 or 10% if you do a good job. Here in the U.S., like, tipping's everywhere. Generally, you want to tip 15 to 20%. Nowadays, every time you go somewhere, there's an option on the machine after you pay to tip. And not just full service restaurants. In 2025, you could go in Starbucks and they'll request a tip. Pretty much almost anywhere you go, it seems like, in the U.S. now. Going along with the tipping, I also add the dining culture to that. And when I say the dining culture, a lot of times in Europe, from my experience, people sit there and they eat for hours. They sit there, the waiter, he stops by every so often, checks on you, but they just kind of let you sit there and just hang out. In the U.S., the waiter or waitress is always back and forward checking on you. They put the bill on the table. And a lot of people I've talked to from outside the U.S., they don't like when you come and stick the bill on the table. They feel like they're being rushed and everything, but it's kind of the way the dining experience works in the U.S., and the service is definitely over the top. Because of the tipping, you're going to get great service because everyone wants a great tip. So it's a lot different when you go to these other countries. I know I've experienced it in Europe. The service 99% of the time is not as good, and they're not expecting as big a tip. So it's definitely a different way of handling things. So that might shock you a little bit. Another culture shock when you visit the U.S. for the very first time is the taxes on everything. So a lot of people aren't used to this. A lot of people, the tax system in the U.S. is very interesting because you got sales tax in some states. Well, most states you have sales tax. Some states you don't have sales tax. And then every state has a different sales tax. And then sometimes it's different depending on what part of the state and what city you're in. So when you buy something in most countries and they say it's $2, it's $2. You buy it in the U.S., hell, it might be $2.08. Might be $2.17, might be $2.30, or it might be $2 if you're in Texas or somewhere in Florida or somewhere where there's no sales tax. So the taxes in the U.S. really throw people for a loop, and people get frustrated. They end up with a pocket full of change. And of course, in a lot of countries, they don't have pennies like they do in this country. So you end up with a pocket full of change because you're gonna pay for all of this stuff. So that's definitely something that catches a lot of people off guard when it comes to the change, the taxes. So keep that in mind before you come to the U.S., where you're going, what the taxes are, all of that kind of good stuff. Another culture shock when you visit the U.S. is definitely the small talk. So I'm a small talk type person. I like to talk. I like to meet new people, all that kind of good stuff. When you go to these other countries, especially in Europe, people are very nice people, but their culture is different. they're not as into the small talk. You're not going to go in the grocery store and the cashier is going to ask you 50 million questions. The cashier is going to check out your stuff and they may say one or two words. They may not say anything to you at all. It's just a different culture when it comes to the small talk. And you have to get used to it a little bit, because when you get there, you're used to every time you pass by someone, you smile at them. Here in the U.S. and Europe is different. So when people from other countries come here and they have to deal with, everyone's trying to talk to them, and it's a different thing. Like, someone in the U.S. is like, how are you doing today? They may come here and they may be like, oh, I'm doing good. They may start telling their life story, how you really doing. When the truth is, in the U.S., when they say how you doing, it's just like saying, hey, not really conversation, just hey. And people like the small talk. It's just different when you're not from here. Another culture shock to people that come to the U.S. for the first time is the guns and the gun laws. I'm not going to get too deep into this because I don't want this to be a political thing, but definitely most other countries, you only see a few cops that have guns. Like here, everyone's got guns, like cop-wise. And then, you see all of the open carry, like you go in a grocery store and there's people permitted to walk around with guns at times. And the fact that you see gun shops everywhere, it's kind of a weird thing for people that come here for the first time. Definitely a different experience. So if you're coming here for the first time, don't be too alarmed by it. Obviously, there's gun violence and situations, a lot more shootings and anything, because in these other countries, there's not a lot of that. But I'm not going to get too deep into it because I don't want to get into political talk in this video. But definitely the gun culture, the gun laws, all of that kind of stuff, definitely a culture shock to people coming to the U.S. for the first time. Another culture shock for people coming to the U.S. for the first time, you see that bridge right behind me, the Mississippi River Bridge, a lot of traffic. People do a lot of driving here in the U.S. and they drive in other places, but it's just a different vibe when it comes to the public transportation, in particular in Europe. Because in Europe, you do a lot more walking and you get around a lot differently. People get in cars, but people definitely have a much better public transport system. Unless you live in Boston, New York, Chicago, maybe a couple other places, there's literally not much of a public transportation system. Where I'm at right now in middle America, or in the South, if you're not in the big cities, literally no public transportation. So it's just a different thing. And I think culturally what makes it so different is it's acceptable to ride the bus and, catch the train and do all this kind of stuff in Europe. But here it's kind of frowned upon. Like if you're here, like the only people you see riding the bus are really poor people that have to ride the bus. And generally here it's more frowned upon. The next culture shock, I'm going to go straight to the bathroom for this. So first of all, American bathrooms are very interesting. In particular interesting, first of all, because we call them bathrooms and restrooms, because you go to other countries, I think about in Europe because I've been there a lot, they're called WCs, water closets, and they're called just toilets, but they're not called bathrooms or restrooms. But it's such a weird thing how the water, we have so much water pressure in our toilets, and it's also such a weird thing how there's such a big gap on the floor where basically someone could crawl in a public restroom and basically come get you if they want to. Going along with the bathroom culture as well, we have public restrooms everywhere here. If you're in Europe, you're probably not used to all those public restrooms, and the public restrooms here can be really dirty. They usually have bathroom ladies in a lot of places, like in Germany and other places in Europe, where you go in, you pay someone a few coins, and they keep the bathroom clean. Here in the U.S., you don't have that. You have a lot of dirty bathrooms, but you have a lot of public restrooms. Another one of those culture shocks that could be reverse culture shock, definitely, if you're coming here for the first time, is the AC culture. See, me being an American and being from here, I'm so used to AC. I remember going to Italy during the summer and them not having AC as frequently as they have here, and just being really disappointed, confused, and a lot of things, because here in the U.S., AC, especially in the South, is a part of life. Like, you have to have AC. I use AC even during the winter months here in Louisiana, where it's not really as cold. But you'll go a lot of places around and you don't see AC as much. So it's a little bit of a culture shock when they get here and they're like, AC everywhere, and then they get used to the AC, and then when they go back to their country, they're like, hey, I kind of miss this. Another culture shock, I talked about sizes earlier. How about the sizes of the vehicles and the pickup trucks? Like pickup trucks galore here in the U.S., especially here in the South. You don't see that many in Europe and in other parts of the world. So here, definitely, size of the vehicles, pickup trucks, definitely a little bit of a culture shock. It also goes along with the size of the roads and the highways and everything, because when you're in countries that have little small roads, you tend to have smaller vehicles. In the US, we tend to have bigger roads, bigger highways, bigger vehicles. And that's all, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, I ask that you please hit the like, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the bell notification so you can know when I have more videos coming out. And as always, remember, live today, grow today, tomorrow's never guaranteed. Peace and travel. Lots and lots of travel. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit the like, share, subscribe button. Leave any comments below. I love to interact. And if you would like to help the channel continue to grow, please consider hitting that join button and becoming a member of the Peace Corps and help us to continue to grow as a travel community.